Anyway, I hope you remember I started to speak about great geographical discoveries. In the last lecture, last occasion, I spoke about a great nation of geographical discoveries. I hope you remember 6 nations, 6 European nations participated in geographical discoveries. The first, Portuguese. Recently, we will analyze the Portuguese discoveries. Sorry?
The other one was Spain, right?
Sorry.
The other one was Spain, right? The other country was Spain.
Spain?
Yes.
Yeah, but beside Spain.
Yeah.
But geographical discoveries started before the Spaniards. I spoke about, for example, innovation of hand navigator at the beginning of the 15th century. And Spanish started a little bit later at the end of the 15th century. Therefore, the pioneer of discoveries were the Portuguese. It's very close, followed then by Spanish discoveries. But the first, according to calendar, according to some decade before the Spanish discoveries. Okay, Portuguese first one. But not to the direction of New World, not to the direction of America, but to the direction of Africa and to the direction of Indian Ocean. Okay, the second one, the Spanish discoveries. The third, it's a Dutch discoveries. And the fourth, it's French discoveries and English discoveries, very close to one to other. And the last one, the Russian discoveries. Generally forget the Russian discoveries because Russian discoveries focuses to Siberia, continental discoveries. But for example, the efforts and the performance was the same, which performed the maritime discoveries. Okay, you remember we analyzed the Portuguese discoveries, the reason and the consequences of Portuguese discoveries according to SWOT analysis. Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Strength is autonomous power, developed economy, large fleet, weakness, far from the center of European world economy. Opportunities, openness toward the ocean, appearance of Florentine and the Genoese trader who invested to the Portuguese economy. And the threats, Islamic State and a great big brother formation of Spain, which occupied for a long time at the turn of 16th and the 17th century Portugal and integrated to the state. But in the middle of 17th century, Portugal became again independent country. Okay, basically, Portuguese discoveries focused the coastal area of Africa. African student, there is in the audience, African student from?
Nigeria.
Nigeria? Nigeria, both. It's very interesting because the geographical discoveries destroyed the African history, the continuous development of Africa. Why? Because African countries are quite strong, not comparable with the Amerindian civilization, American civilization, because American civilization, Aztec civilization, and Inca civilization was in the Copper Age. No efficient arms, no efficient weapons against the Europeans. But in Africa lived in Iron Age with efficient weapons and well-organized society. How destroyed African countries? How destroyed? Basically with help of trade. With help of trade. The commercial gate for European first wave in Portuguese trader, this was the Bay of Guinea. Bay of Guinea. 3 crucial products exported from African country: gold, ivory, and the slave. Not by chance, it's named Ivory Coast, Golden Coast, or Slave Coast, because these were the most important products. How changed these very valuable products? For weapons, for firearms. On the time of 16th century, according to economic reconstruction, a lot of 100,000 weapons distributed for the tribe on the area of Bay of Guinea. And why so dangerous for the local countries, local population? Because the African wasn't able to make bullets and gunpowder. Therefore, for bullets and gunpowder necessary to pay. How? Gold, slave, and ivory. This was the poison. This was the poison which flowed into the African history. And if looking the history of African empire, majority of African empire founded in the continental area. For example, probably you know the history of Great Zimbabwe and the history of Sudan. It's very interesting because partly came from, it's connected to the Saharan region and Savannah Empire, and partly it's a tropical forest area. It's a Sudan. It's a historical geographical area. Majority of great African empire were a continental empire, not on the coastal area, inside of the continent. And in consequence of distribution of firearms, founded a new form of state, new form of the state. You know the name of Max Weber, Maximilian Weber. It's an it's a German social scientist, lived at the beginning of 20th century. And he typicized the form of the power, three types of the power described. The first type of the power, a traditional power, a tradition. Somebody know name of Max Weber? Nobody? Okay. It's a greenfield investment. Anyway, a traditional power, which is the basic principles of traditional power. Somebody became a king because his father and grandfather was a king, came from the dynasty. This is the basic principle for the legal, for example, receiving a highest power, a tradition. The second one, a rational power, a rational power. It's a modern state. It's a modern state. Look at, for example, a modern state means not the human, not the man, not the politician direct the state, but the legal system direct the state. In the modern world, more or less. But this is the rule, the basic rule. And the third one, a charismatical power. A charismatical power. You know which is the charismatical power? A charisma. It's a Greek word. A charisma means a personal superpower. Like, for example, Alexander the Great in the Greek history, he who conquered and unified whole of the Greece and conquered Near East, large part of Persian Empire and Egypt. This is the same story with, for example, Bonaparte Napoleon in the early modern history, and Adolf Hitler and Joseph Vissarionovich Stalin, a charismatical power. The source of the power, the superpower, the Übermensch, as named by in the German philosophy, by Nietzsche. And in the African history, based to the tradition. The ruler of Great Zimbabwe and Sudan is constructed by dynasty, member of the dynasty. But in consequence of appearance of European who distributed firearms, it's a technological innovation of Europe, introduced a new form of state which named warlords. Warlords, you know this term. Not for the legal system, not based the power to the legal system, not for tradition, but a charisma, a personal power. It was a tragical. It was a tragical, according to consequences, because it slowed to the continuous war and destroyed the inner evolution of continental empire, Zimbabwe and Sudan. And this story started with the geographical discoveries. It was a catastrophic. Somebody know how many percent of African population exported as a slave to America, to Europe, and to, how many, it is a guess. How many percent of African population exported?
40 million.
40, how many percent? Person. How many percent? 1, 2, 3, 4, less than 100. It's a 20%? 1% only. 1%. A tropical disease killed much more. Not the proportion is a tragical, but introduction, this kind of the state formation rules. Okay, good. This is the green color sign Portuguese commercial empire. Occupied large part of African coastal area and large part of India and some island, Spice Island on the Indian Ocean, and received Brazil in consequence of international contrast between Spain and Portugal. It's named Tordesillas, Contract of Tordesillas. I hope you remember your secondary school on the history. Okay, which were the heyday of Portuguese commercial empire. One indicator, the number of Portuguese ships which participated on the Asian trade. You can see the heyday was a 16th century. In the 16th century, at the beginning of 17th century decline, the number of ships which participated in the intercontinental trade. The key city, not leading city, but the key city, it's a headquarter of international trade, became a Lisbon. Somebody visited in Lisbon? Nobody. Okay, therefore, it's very useful to see one short historical picture about evolution of Lisbon.
Today we're going on an adventure.
Sorry.
We're heading abroad to a country rich in history, natural beauty, and fascinating architecture.
Not so lovely, but you can see the subtitle.
Welcome to Portugal. Subscribe to American Explorer. Portugal's history is defined by exploration and conquest, beautiful architecture, and destructive earthquakes. The country's location on the edge of the Iberian Peninsula led to a culture influenced heavily by maritime and sea exploration. Its civilization molded and influenced by different cultures. In a country so chock full of history and things to do, there's no better place to start than the capital city of Lisbon. Lisbon is split into several districts and neighborhoods, but in this video we're just going to stick to a few of the main areas. Bairro Alto, a rolling bohemian neighborhood known for its nightlife. The Chiado district, offering upscale shopping and beautiful streets to wander. The Baixa district, which is the heart of downtown Lisbon. And Alfama, one of the oldest neighborhoods consisting of a maze of narrow streets winding up a hill crowned by a castle. Before we get too far into it, I think it's important to just get a rough idea of the history of Lisbon, even if it's just an abridged version. Lisbon is one of the oldest cities in the world, and the second oldest capital in all of Europe behind Athens. Although the area was likely inhabited well into prehistoric times, we don't really have solid proof of city building until the Romans took control around 205 BCE until 409 CE. Ownership passed among a few different peoples, including the Visigoths, until the Moors out of North Africa overran the Iberian Peninsula in the 8th century. The city remained under Moorish rule for 433 years, until the Portuguese were able to take it after a months-long siege in 1147. There were many battles and wars fought, but we'll kind of skip ahead to the Age of Discovery, when the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama led a fleet to India, finally breaking the Venetian rule on Oriental trade. This led to Portuguese domination and wealth as they became strong explorers and traders. Jumping ahead in time, we come to undoubtedly the most important date in Lisbon history, November 1st, 1755. It was early morning on All Saints' Day, and many of Lisbon's citizens were inside churches worshiping when the ground began to shake and all the church bells began to ring in unison. It was a powerful earthquake that had been triggered just off the coast. What followed was one of the worst natural disasters in recorded history. The seismic waves collapsed churches, killing thousands of parishioners and buried entire neighborhoods in rubble. Much of the city was completely destroyed. While the Lisbon citizens dealt with the immediate aftershock of the catastrophe, some noticed that the water had completely withdrawn from the bay, leaving a bare wasteland. It was a drawback of an impending tidal wave that would arrive within the hour and cause even more chaos and death to the already devastated city. It's estimated that 60,000 Lisboners died that day, although no one knows the exact figures. This day became a defining moment for Portugal. As you'll see, this earthquake left its mark all over the city in big ways and small. The rebuilding that would have to come, and the innovations it would inspire, the writing and art of this event would become known the world over. After seeing many of its iconic buildings destroyed and its people decimated, Lisbon would need to have an astounding rebirth. Lisbon today is a vibrant city and a great destination for vacationers. Its unique architecture and hilly landscape make for beautiful scenes. And as you walk around the city, you'll begin to notice little details that make Lisbon a really special place. One of the standout architecture styles of Lisbon are the azulejos. These elaborately painted tiles are found all around the city, decorating the walls. The word itself is derived from an Arabic word, azulej, which roughly translates to polished stone. These tiles originally had the function of insulation and protection from the elements in Mediterranean climates, but became a form of art and expression. Although the first tiles were imported from Spain, they kept their Arabic and Muslim inspiration in the beginning. In accordance with Islamic law, they could not depict human figures, so early azulejos were decorated with complex repeating geometric designs, but slowly painters began working human forms into the art. And as Christianity came to the region, the tiles began depicting religious scenes. One interesting side bit is the prevalence of the colors blue and white, which is by no means the only color scheme. It is quite present. This is due to the fascination Portugal had with the Far East during the Age of Discovery. Mimicking the color scheme of fine Chinese porcelain was seen as a way to show off your status. But as you can see through this montage, Portuguese artists certainly didn't limit themselves by color or design. Azulejos, just one little detail that makes Lisbon a uniquely beautiful city. Another beautiful architecture characteristic of Lisbon is the Portuguese pavement. Known in Portuguese as calçada portuguesa, it can be found all over Portugal as well as former Portuguese colonies, but is uniquely distinct in Lisbon. These mosaics are used throughout the city as sidewalks, atriums, and town squares. The designs can be as simple as repeating patterns to full-blown murals. Now let's check out some of the specific districts and what they have to offer. Up first, we have the Baixa district, often referred to as the heart of Lisbon's downtown. After the earthquake of 1755, this region was left utterly destroyed. Its rebuild was designed by Marquis de Pombal. Using one of the first grid systems for its roads, The rebuild also featured one of the first examples of earthquake-resistant construction. The key of this build was what's called a pomeline cage, where a wood lattice framework is used in conjunction with the standard masonry to distribute the force of an earthquake. The new construction was tested by having troops march around to simulate an earthquake. Another clever element of the anti-seismic design was done underground. Wooden poles were driven vertically into the riverbed to reinforce the city.
Okay, but
Baisha today
last part is about the modern history of Lisbon. But Lisbon is a very interesting city for geographical location because this is the best harbor whole of Portugal. Ideal location. It's an excellent bay for Portuguese ship, and not by chance. After geographical discoveries, it's financed by central state. Look at the story. Basically, in the last lecture I spoke about innovation of Henry the Navigator. He lived at the beginning of 15th century. He was the first son of John I, King of Portugal. He was a member of royal family, therefore collected the logbooks. You know which is logbooks. The captain and the first officer write each crucial information about the day of sailing on the sea, the ocean current, the wind direction, and the weather. Geographer of Henry the Navigator collected unbelievable information, quantity of information. This was the first big data revolution. You never remember that this is the age of printing, official printing, the repeating and the making the information, proliferate the information. The map of Portuguese geographer was the best on international comparison. Not by chance, when Cristoforo Colombo, who discovered the direct sailing way to America, the first time traveled to Lisbon and tried to arguing to the John II, King of Portugal, for financing of his travel to America. Somebody know why denied his offer for the Portugal king? And Portugal king John II asked the counselor of him about the reality of the plan of Columbus. Why? Why rejected? Somebody know? Nobody? Because Columbus underestimated the size of globe, size of Earth. For Portuguese geographer and the map maker had a real and quite a correct, according to modern geography, the criteria of modern geography, quite reliable data about the size of Earth. If we imagine no America on the other side of the Northern Sea, Atlantic Ocean, no chance for survival. No chance for survival. The sailor and the expedition of Columbus. Okay, after that, a rejection on the Portuguese court, traveled to Spain and received the support from the Queen and Queen of Spain, and started the very famous travel in 1492, and it was successful. But the plan of Portugal and the Portuguese was sailing on the coastal area of Africa. And Cristoforo, not Cristoforo, it's Bartolomeu Diaz discovered the Cape of Good Hope. You can see the data. It's happened 1488 by 87 when arrived here. And Vasco da Gama continued before the travel of Columbus, sailed on the eastern coast of Africa and arrived to eastern, it's a Malabar coast, eastern part western part of India. And okay, therefore, if we are looking the discovery of the right way to China, because this was the ambition of Columbus. Similarly, is discovered by Portuguese sailor. Okay. You can see the Lisbon, ideal location. It's an excellent harbor for the trading vessels. But the problem that Portugal, you remember the SWOT analysis, Portugal and Lisbon, very far from the core area, the central area of European economy. Look at the condition. Direct maritime trade, discovered by Portugal, is a plus. The second one, precious metal. Precious metal, this is the key of Oriental spice. It's not on the hand of Portuguese trader, but organized the mining in Europe by German miner and German trader. Not by chance, the professional language, even though the most important terms of the mining came from the German language. German merchant. Commercial network of distribution, you remember from the age of Venice, who distributed spice, Oriental spice in Europe? Jews and Germans. And because a German, much better position, because not only the trading network constructed, but monopolized even the precious metal mining and the trade. Therefore, the Portuguese trader and the Portuguese sailor and the businessman found the relation with the German. Therefore, colonization of Indian Ocean started with collaboration of German merchant and Portuguese sailor. Okay, but Lisbon and the best and most important German merchant houses very far from each to other. Because Lisbon, located on the coastal area of Atlantic Ocean, and the most important German city-state, not cities, Nuremberg, Augsburg, located to southern Germany. Therefore, the two crucial actors of late medieval European trade necessary to find a meeting point, almost on halfway. The meeting point between German and Portuguese was Antwerp. Antwerp located in Low Country. You remember the great tradition of Low Country. You remember on the High Middle Ages, two poles of European medieval economy. Southern pole, North Italian city-state, Genoa, Pisa, Florence, and Venice, and the northern cities, northern area, Low Country. Recently, it's a little bit, we can simplify. Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. Antwerp, recently the second largest city of Belgium. Behind them, a great tradition of Low Country. You can see the trajectory of Antwerp on the age of collaboration between German trader and the Portuguese trader, doubled the population. Somebody visited in Antwerp? Nobody. Look at a very, very short movie about Antwerp. Because it's very important, because we are speaking about historical experiences, which is a practical side. And I support that organized travel to historical site, because looking and watching some, for example, building, it's maybe very impressive. I remember when first time I traveled to Italy. I was a student at the second university, and when I arrived to Florence, it's impressed me. Why? Because look at, for example, the built environment. Majority of them in Szeged, for example, built in the 19th century. In Florence, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 long buildings we can see. And somehow like a three dimension, and the fourth dimension, generally it's defined a time, a fourth dimension. And you can see much deeper the past, if you can see the fourth dimension. with the buildings which constructed a lot of thousand years ago. Okay, look at a very, very short movies about Antwerp. Okay. Why? No voice. So it's a technical dependence.
Yeah, in.
It's a connection problem, I suppose.
A relaxing weekend is guaranteed in Antwerp, the second biggest city in Belgium. From culture and history to luxury chocolate. Let's go! Everything now in 3 minutes. The Grote Market Square is at the center of the city. From here you can easily reach all the main sites.
The tower of the Cathedral of Our Lady at 123 meters is the tallest in Belgium.
The church was opened almost 500 years ago and at the time was the largest Gothic building in the Netherlands. Around the church there are many restaurants serving typical mussels with fries. As the first museum in the world, Planting Moretos is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Trying out the exhibits here is allowed and recommended.
Completely preserved and ready for printing. These are some of the oldest printing presses in the world. Even after many centuries, these presses could print again today. There is a Belgian chocolate factory in this magnificent building.
The chocolate line produces a award-winning chocolate, a truly delightful pleasure that is light on your pocket.
We gave in to the urge and bought also some chocolate. The Rubens house is just around the corner and is a cultural highlight. Antwerp is especially beautiful in the summer. There are also many cruise ships docking here at the second largest port in Europe.
Hesting is located directly by the water and the oldest building in the city.
At St. Michaelskai, parking is free of charge.
From the Museum Anderstrom you can admire the best view of the city. Let's take a look.
This museum is huge. It's like visiting another world on each floor. Interactive exhibitions are everywhere. From the panoramic platform on the 10th floor, you can enjoy a fabulous view of the city, and it's free if you don't visit the museum. Dark aus Antwerpen.
Ghent is just half an hour from Antwerp, so check out our Ghent video.
Okay, I hope you remember the large cathedral and the large fortress. These are indicator richness of Low Country. Why? Because this is a plain area, no stone in the local area. Therefore, each piece of stone imported somewhere by maritime trade. And it's a typical construction of the building from bricks, which able to make in the local industry but from clay and any other raw material. But the stone, no stone, no stone. but so rich that was able to pay enough for not only for the miner of the stones, but able to import from Baltic area, from very far. Okay, look at the story of Antwerp. Antwerp, a little bit, it's a hair from Bruges and Venice, according to construction of the trade. Port of the Scheldt River. There is a river which flows through the city and connected to the background of the continental background. The second indicator, commercial tradition of Low Country. You remember the story. Low Country connected very closely, partly to southern part of England and to the Baltic Sea area, which are the most important export products of the Baltic Sea. Timber material, which very similar, like recently the oil in the international trade. There is a very trist actuality of that. A timber, it's a general material for construction of building, for construction of ships, construction of bridges, everything. Who has a monopoly of the Baltic area, forest area, it's able to dominate the international trade until the appearance of modern steam engine. The second one, crossroads to the northern trade, to the direction of Scandinavia, to the direction of German countries, and even to the direction until Russia. From this area, constructed on the High Middle Ages, the it's a highway network, trading network for each part of continental Europe. Quasi-independent country. You remember the story of Champagne-Brie. Why so important position of Champagne-Brie? Didn't connect it to the high power, strong political power. Like a little bit same the position, because a part of Holy Roman Empire. But it's only virtual empire. No real power on the hand of Holy Roman Emperor. Therefore, a trader like the city, it's a quasi-offshore region, according to modern comparison. Brabant. Because around Antwerp, this is the province named Brabant. Okay, port of German merchant houses for very lost, very far in the High Middle Ages. Therefore, Antwerp, ideal meeting point between German and the Portuguese. And very interesting the story of Antwerp, because after closing of the period of Venetian, the next leading city was Antwerp. But not for local energy, not for the power of Antwerp. It was a trick a little bit. This was a meeting point, not came from the local energy, local power, and directed a foreigner. Not the local citizen directed the commercial and the trading life of Antwerp, but the Portuguese and German, the foreigner traders. Okay, and very important, religious tolerance. Religious tolerance. It's a global indicator of recovery and the economic power. The most powerful and the most developed region of the world in the historical past and even recently, it's dominate a religious tolerance. And if some region start to decline, the first indicator, the religious intolerance. Religious intolerance. Therefore, relation to the other religion is indicator of economic position and the trajectory of the economic development. If decline, it's increase the intolerance. And if recover, increase the religious tolerance. Therefore, if you, for example, would like to understand the position, one city, one country, one region, very reliable indicator of religious tolerance. This was one of the most important religion tolerance. And very interesting, I will speak about a little bit later, I stayed half year in the Netherlands. I was a fellow of Netherlands Institute of Advanced Studies in Wassenaar. And recently, in the public discussion, Dutch Republic name a Calvinist Republic. For foreign student, Calvinism, one fraction of Christendom, it's founded in the 16th century by Jean Calvin, a French reformer, religious reformer. My guess, how many percent of Dutch population is a Calvinist? You imagine that on the lecture you can relax and listening information, but time by time I ask some question. How many percent? It's a guess.
0.
0. No, a little bit more. 26, one quarter of population. Much higher the proportion of the Roman Catholic. And a lot of different Jews, Muslim, Baptist, a lot of different Christian and not Christian community living in the Dutch Republic. Why determining part of history of the Dutch Republic, the Calvinist community? You know the French political category WASP, white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant. How many percent in American history, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant? How many percent of population? Cheers. 20%, and recently declined in consequence of Central American immigration. 20%. But majority, 90% of American presidents were white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant. Who weren't white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant? Which American president? Who was the first who wasn't Anglo-Saxon, not white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant? JFK. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, because a Catholic, Irish Catholic immigrant family. Who was the second? Obama. But his border case because his father came from Africa, from Kenya. And his mother, white, Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Therefore, education followed the same trajectory like any other white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And after, how the name is, Trump is a Catholic, and before who was the president before Trump? I follow. I forget.
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden. It's a similar Catholic, but very interesting. Until the end of beginning of 21st century, majority of American president came from the same political class. White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Less than 20% of whole population. A little bit the same story happened and unfolded in the history of Dutch Republic. 1/4 of population dominated the political life. Okay, now turn back to the story. Religious tolerance is crucial. It's crucial because indicator of direction of political development, economic development. And foreign domination, as I mentioned, dominated the political and economic life by Portuguese and German. Okay, we are over. And in this history played a crucial role a very famous German family. It's a German family, it's a Fugger family. This is a picture about the most famous member of Fugger family, Jacob Fugger. Jacob the Rich, as I named the contemporaries. He was the chancellor and banker of Holy Roman Empire. This is the Charles V, the last real emperor of Holy Roman Empire. And tried to organize, and finally organized, international trade in the continental Europe. This is the location in Augsburg, and he was the first businessman who founded a social flat program. A social flat program. Poor people who lived in Augsburg received one flat in a social houses. It's very interesting. It's appeared in consequence of sensibility of Jacob the Rich, even in the first half of 16th century, which any other European country only in the second half of the 19th century. Okay, this is the network of great German merchant houses in the continental axis and the trading maritime trade axis of that. Fugger, Wörser, it's Augsburg, from Augsburg, Bonavisi, Lucca, Affiatadi, Cremona. And Antwerp, the great age of Antwerp, we can divide three periods. The first period was a direct consequences of Genoese discoveries. In consequence of Genoese discoveries, Portuguese discoveries, a Portuguese trader organized the direct maritime trade of oriental spice from the Spice Island, closed out the Venetian, directly on the Indian Ocean to Lisbon. From Lisbon, transported to Antwerp, paid by precious metal, a German trader for Portuguese, and the German trader distributed on the continental area. This was the first stage. In consequence of that, a Venetian trader, an Italian trader, closed out to the play, to the game, sorry. But started one war between Habsburg and the Valois, German and the French Empire, which paralyzed the international trade. The war, not a good news, good circumstances for international trade. Therefore, the Portuguese period at the beginning of 20th closed. The second period, when a Spanish Spaniard conquistador occupied Central America and later northern part of Southern America, and it's constructed the first famous mining of silver. It's a Potosi, I remember, in Bolivia. Exported precious metal, American precious metal, to Europe, recovered international trade, and started a new period from the beginning of 40s until the end of 50s. It was a Spanish period. As I mentioned, economic life of Antwerp organized foreign people. The first period founded a Portuguese district and a German district. And when American silver via Spanish Empire appeared in Antwerp, founded beside this older district a Spanish district. Therefore, this was the economic downtown of structure of economic downtown of Antwerp. Spanish, Portuguese, and the German, and interacted one to other. But along French and German war for the dominance of continental Europe destroyed the economic structure. How? It's a last period, it's industrial period, but how destroyed? Okay. The key actors of international European war, Habsburg and Valois, German and the French war, which necessary for the war? Three things: money, money, and the money. And burn the money, because it's very expensive hobby, organized military campaign. Therefore, both empire declared in the 50s bankruptcy, not able to pay, loaning emperor and the kings, the feudal ruler. It's very dangerous gamble, very dangerous gamble. Therefore, the German merchant houses, who was the most important bankers to the Holy Roman Empire, collapsed, both of them. Therefore, necessary to find a new financer of international empire, trading empire, Portuguese and the Spanish empire. And the new financer, new banker of globalizing economy, European economy, financed by Genoese. Genoese replaced the position of the Germans. Germans collapsed. No position. Lost the position. And very interesting story. Why so important? Which is the most important in the economic life? The confidence. Confidence. Look at the story of Fugger, Jacob the Fugger. Jacob Fugger died, but his family followed the enterprises, some merchant houses. And the merchant houses on that time was not only the classical trading function, but the banking function. The contemporaries, for example, taking the deposit to the agency of merchant houses. It's a bank function, it's a traditional bank function. Not separated the banks and the merchant houses, it's a somehow its function in the joint venture. And when proliferated the information that the Holy Roman Emperor Philip II declared bankruptcy, started a classical bank panic, bank panic. Each depositor ran to the agency and asked back the deposit. And very interesting, the Fuggers paid back each deposit. But lost the confidence. Unbelievable, but the Fugger merchant houses in Augsburg exist recently. It's a mid-level enterprises. Unbelievable. Founded in the 14th century and exist even now. In Hungary, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I don't know how deeply know the foreign student the European, Hungarian history, but in the Hungarian history, even in the 20th century, had 9 political change. 9 times. And each occasion, each cases of political change, the new owner of the political power declared the older one is silly and we are clever. And changed. I live together in the student hostel, one biologist, a student biologist. There is an experiment with the rats. It's a very simple experiment, which is the behavior of the rats. If change the direction, change the instruction. You know the classical experiment of Pavlov, dog of Pavlov. Who know the story experiment? Dog of Pavlov was, it's very simple. How fix the reaction? For example, there is a lamp and a feed. Lamp and a feed. And the reaction of the dog learn before the lamp, after the feed. But if change, for example, is electric shock, receive lamp and electric shock. It's tested with the rat. Not able to forecast the consequences. Which is the reaction of the rat? Became very passive and looking the floor. Look at the Hungarian. Looking the floor. Okay, but turn back to the story because I have to speak about the age of Genoa. Okay, after the collapse of Fugger merchant houses, which survived until now in the mid-level enterprises of Germany, it's replaced by Genoese trader. You remember the story of Genoa. Genoa was one of the most important rivals. It's a good player, it's an important player of international trade on the age of Venice. But after the victory of Venice turned to the direction of western basin of Mediterranean Sea, invested a lot of money, a lot of loan. It's a royal loan to the Portuguese kingdom and the Spanish kingdom too. Fernand Brodel named this age of Genoa, rule of Genoese was so discreet and sophisticated that the historian for a long time failed to notice it. Look at the location of Genoa. If we describe age of Venice, it's ideal. Why? Because it's very easy to organize the defense. Because Venice located in the northern of the Adriatic Sea's bag, and the first line of the defense may be the entrance, and the second one a lot of island on the Dalmatic coast, and finally entrance to lagoon. Look at the location of Genoa. It's open sea, undefensible area in geographical sense. One direction, it's a clear sea, it's open. Other direction, it's an alpine region, mountain area. After appearance of artillery, the cannons, it's very easy, took under siege and firing from the mountain area inside to the city. Therefore, according to geographical location, it's a free city, it's an open city. It's almost not possible to defend. Okay, look at Genoa. If looking at this picture, it's a very narrow screen, very narrow coastal area. Behind them are barren mountains. Barren mountains, why? Because the forest is the most important raw material. Timber for shipbuilding, timber for building bridges, everything. Therefore, it's destroyed. Hew down all of the forest, even in the antiquity. Narrow strip along the coast, very, very small place for, it's a built area. It's a classical modern city behind a feudal mountain area. Facing west, offering her service for Spanish Empire. Okay, look at the very, very short movie about Genoa. It's very important taking, it's no voice, I remember, for that. It's only impressive picture about location and the feeling of the city trip. Very narrow street, very narrow, because it's very valuable the free spaces in the cities. You can see the narrow coastal area behind the mountain. Okay, very interesting because it's so narrow that only in the historical city, only 2 streets, which enough large.
So, you're going to Genoa, but you don't know what to do?
Well,
Sorry. Enough large for the using of coach and the carriages. Sorry. Good. Look at the Genoa, the most important indicator of the settlement. The first one, it's tiny settled valleys. It's very small geographical, very bad geographical location. Narrow street, only 2 streets, Santa Nova and Via Albi, enough large for carriage traffic. Apennines, easy to overlook the town. As I mentioned, after appearance of artillery, not possible to save the city against invasion and the hostile military campaign. Very vulnerable, both directions, from the direction of sea and from the direction of continental area. No mare nostrum like Adriatic Sea on the case of Venetian history, dependent on the outside world, and therefore very open for making compromise. And population very high, not comparable with Venice, because Venice 150,000 inhabitants, it's only half the size of Venice, but very large, 80,000. On the same time, in Hungary, the largest population was 10,000. 10,000. International comparison is very obvious. On the time, Hungary was a semi-peripheral area, and this was the core area of European economy. And the population of empire, because like happened on the case of Venice, not only a closed Genoa, the city formed the Genoese empire, but conquered, for example, Sicily, which was the bread maker of Mediterranean Sea, and the most important export area of the cereals until the early modern time. Okay. Very dangerous loaning to the Spanish Empire because it's overused the money, overused the budget for example, luxury, consummation, and partly for military operation. Therefore, more or less, each 20 years had declared a bankruptcy, cancelled each loan by government of empire. The first one happened when destroyed the German merchant houses, 1557, and we can follow each almost 2 decades happened one bankruptcy. Okay, this bankruptcy killed by Fuggers, and after the collapse of Genoese merchant houses, the German merchant houses somehow necessary organize and found a new financer of globalizing economy of Spanish Empire. Because, as I mentioned, this empire, it's contained not only a European continental area, Low Country was a part of Holy Roman Empire, Spain was a part of Holy Roman Empire, majority of German countries, it's a Holy Roman Empire, but even conquered to the second half of 14th century, central part of America, and the majority of southern part of America too. Even the Portuguese sailor, you know the story, arrived to Japan and founded a large Christian community even in Japan. Somehow necessary to organize, finance and organize this globalizing European economy. The first occasion when asked a Spanish king from loan from the Genoese king happened, it's at the beginning of 16th century, 1527. It's a great deal loaning to the Spanish king, but very dangerous gamble, as I mentioned. German merchant houses and the leader of the merchant houses can make a story about it. Very interesting, the strategy of the Genoese. Because for the banker, somebody had a loan or credit from the bank. No, any other, only me. Because for the banker, the most important problem that for example, account reader, it's behave like a silly man. If arrives, for example, some amount, running to the shop and buy a silly products and burn the money. And this problem was the same even in the early modern time or the Middle Ages. Therefore, the Genoese banker used a genial solution. He was the banker, offered the loan for Spanish Empire, one identity, and other one, he was a state of merchant. Therefore, he was a member of Spanish government. It's a double identity, banker and participate as an officer, general, counselor in the forming and the making and organizing a Spanish government. It's named a state merchant, a state merchant. And the Genoese, it's a very close circle. 20 family organized financial life, financial affairs of Italy, and the governmental operation of Spain. Unbelievable, a close circle of that. One of the famous members is close Genoese state merchant circle, Ambrogio Spinola Doria. It's collected the budget of Spanish army and traveled to Spain, and he was a general of Spanish army and organized and direct using the loan which financed for himself. Unbelievable construction. Banker and general. And Genoese banker collected the capital, surplus which collected and accumulated on the heyday of northern Italian cities and invested to the Spanish empire. Very, very dangerous game. But the rate of investment very high, 10 to 30% per year. But very clever guy organized international trade. You can imagine, it's possible, I told about in the last week, which is the rhythm of the sailing between, for example, Sevilla or Cadiz, the famous port of Iberian Peninsula, and Veracruz, port of Mexico. New Spain as a contemporary name. It's 1.5 years, go and back. And the Genoese trader, like a chess player, was imagined to forecast the plan 1.5 go and back. Unbelievable construction. Which constructed at the turn of 16th and 17th century functioned, this system functioned until the beginning of 19th century. Until the beginning of 19th century, it became independent countries. This was the great revolution of American countries at the turn of 18th and the 19th century. But the Genoese system, how should to be organized a go and back trade, it's founded by Genoese trade. But unfortunately, arrived the bankruptcy 1627, and the Genoese construction collapsed. And it was a general reason, a failing of Genoese trading construction, because to the middle of 17th century, not only Spain, not only Genoa, not only Venice, but whole of Mediterranean area declined, started to decline. Okay, financial game based on coins and bill of exchange, you know it's artificial money. Regular imperial bankruptcy happened, the first who rose up to the leading position by Genoa, and the last one, 1627, which down from this ruling position. Organized intercontinental trade, as I mentioned. Genoa fortune depends on the American treasury, Spain, and the wealth of Italy. But, very interesting, Genoese organized a double level of the trade between America and Europe. Official, pay a tax and the fees and everything, and the smuggling. It's no paying to the imperial budget, nothing. It's a smuggling, classical smuggling. And the smuggling survived. Official position, official trading position lost, but the smuggling, it's a dark economy, survived for some decades. Okay? 20 to 30 state merchants, as a contemporary name, hombre de negocios, organized whole of the international trade. It was how the name is, it's a dark government. It's a dark government. But the fortune of Genoa is connected to the fortune of the Spanish Empire, which declined on the middle of 17th century. This is the intercontinental trade, some galleys which organized the fleet of the galleys. Okay, this is the end of the Genoese Empire. If summarize today's information, after the Age of Venice, the second, it's a little bit longer than 1 century, started with the peace treaty of Turin, you remember 1381, and closed to the end of 15th century. The speed of changing the position of leading city in the 16th century increased. First half of 20th century dominated Antwerp, and the second half, a little bit longer than the second half, dominated by Genoa. Why fade Genoa in the leading city position? Very important, the rise of Portuguese rivals. But the key strike on the position of the Portuguese trading empire was the rivalry of the Dutch empire, Dutch intercontinental empire. Why? Because international position of Atlantic Ocean increased, northern part of the Atlantic Ocean. And the next leading city was the capital of the forming Dutch Republic, which named Amsterdam. Somebody know which river flowing in Amsterdam? Because Amsterdam located to the side of river. Somebody? Do you like a beer? There is one name of beer. You can tell which. Amstel, you know, Amstel. Therefore, the name of Amsterdam came from the Amstel, this is the name of river, and the dam, beside the Amstel. Amsterdam. Okay, and the next leading city is Amsterdam. And about the story of Amsterdam, I will speak in the next lecture, very short time, and we will continue in the next week this story. Thanks a lot for your attention. I ask your patience for some minutes and read your list of participants.